Well, there's absolutely no way to follow up a rocketing intro like that, but I'm going to do my best anyway. So, the thing about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is I always consider the mid-1980s, and I'm often mocked for this, but I often call it the golden age and the golden era of action figures because you had the big three of Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Masters of the Universe on store shelves during that mid-1980s era, including a quiet last gasp of Star Wars you still saw on shelves. A lot of things like Kenner Superpowers, the introduction of Mask, you name it, it was all there. Now, whether you grew up in that era or grew up after that fact, or even before, you're probably familiar with the phrase, I have the power. And for many years, this toy line certainly had the power. However, around the late 1980s, with the New Adventures of He-Man, you started to see this slowly disappear from store shelves, and He-Man would try to make a return to the toy aisles. It made this attempt in the early 2000s with the 2000X line, and it didn't quite hit the heights that it got in the 1980s, and I don't expect that it ever will, but we're getting as close as we can in the era that we're in right now. And with all the SDCC reveals, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, as well as the resurgence we've seen of MOTU Origins, Masterverse, the Masters of the WWE Universe, and the new CGI series, we're seeing both new media entertainment and toys on the shelves. So hopefully the toys have the power once again. Hi again, everyone. My name's Ken. This is a Toy Kennections Online stream, or TKO, coming to you on this fine Saturday, wherever and whatever part of the world that you happen to be watching from. So I got a few friends backstage right now that I'm going to bring on slowly one by one, and they are all Masters of the Universe fans, and they actually they're collecting more of the modern stuff than I am these days. So I thought it would be good to have them on here to give their thoughts, recent thoughts, whatever it is, vintage toys, whatever. Let's get some of them on camera right here and now, starting with an individual who, when I first got into YouTube just over a year ago, this guy was very welcoming towards me. I would often see him as a moderator on the live streams. And once we got, connected to talk a little bit more, we would talk a bit about YouTube analytics, what it takes to sort of run a channel long term. So he's been someone who I've actually just been really honored and pleasure to be a friend of his, coming to the show for the first time, even if we've known each other for a little while now. Grindhead Jim, welcome to Toy Kennections Online. How are you, my friend?
Good. Talk about a hard intro to follow. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, man. This is great. I love talking Motu, and this is a good place to do it. So I'm blessed to be with everyone we have on the panel. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. Been trying to either get on your channel or get you on here for a little while now. So I think we talked about it like almost half a year ago, and now we finally get to do this. And it's funny because I feel like I know you super well, and yet we haven't done this yet, which is quite, finally glad to be able to do this though. But the next individual was somebody I actually streamed with just last week, and we knew each other a few months ago as well, just streaming with other Canadian friends through the network and community here. And when he asked, hey, are you available in a few minutes? I'm like, buddy, anything for you. And we talked and speculated about what the next SDCC release would be. And we were both right and both kind of wrong. Okay, fine. We were mostly wrong. But a lot of YouTubers already know him. He's got a great channel out there. Mega J Retro, welcome to Toy Kennections Online for the first time. How you feeling? And you are muted.
Hi, everybody. That happens a lot. I forget to put the freaking mute button. Anyway, hi. How's it going, everybody? Good to see you.
Yeah, and Jay, I know sometimes you're up late, so thank you for being up early, at least on my part of the globe. You don't have the eye bags. Don't worry about that. Once we all hit our 40s, the eye bags are permanent anyway. So
they're there. The light's masking it. But thanks for having me, Ken. Hey, what's going on, Jim? Good to see you.
Hey, I brought coffee, so if you need it, just let me know.
I'm gonna have to virtually grab that from you. We'll see what happens.
Well, just raise that sword and transport to Eternia, and you'll be right there. And give the sword back. So, all right. Now, if you guys enjoyed that rocketing intro and noticed that it wasn't my usual one, wasn't my usual rock and roll style, it was more this stop motion thing. No, I do not have that level of talent to be able to do that. 99.999, and you can say 999 all the way for the next hour, and you still wouldn't be able to find that percentage of people who have that talent. But that 0.00001 or whatever that do have that talent, I've got them on the show for the first time. He's also got another great channel, very underrated channel, but hopefully after this stream, we throw a few subscriptions his way. Corbra Lang, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Cor is another fellow Canadian, more timid than his talent would ever indicate.
I'm good at stop motion, not as social as you guys, but I started off more the G.I. Joe guy, but with this resurgence of the Origins, I guess it kind of pulled me right back into the MOTU, probably more than I ever was, even as a kid.
Well, let's with that, let's say hello to the chat, starting with Ryan Sweeney. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I don't know if that's Technical Knockout or Toy Kennections Online for the win. I'll assume it's Toy Kennections Online for the win. We just had a recording last night that'll come up later in the week on his channel. So thank you again, Ryan Sweeney. Boba Hicks, good to see you. Rai Ken 33, good to see you. Kieran Ball greets everyone in the chat. And you've got Nolan here. Thank you again for joining here. And Gaz has managed to make it as well. And Kieran says hi. Kieran says hi to, sorry, my screen jumped. That's why I started a little bit here. To all of you folks. And yeah, gentlemen, we got to dive right into this. I had quite an agenda, and then all of a sudden the SDCC stuff dropped. So I'm going to try to get my other my other tab open here if I can find it. I don't have the best computer in the world out there, but what are we looking at here? Let me pull this up onto the stream. You guys see that? Yes, we do.
Start with the heavy hitter, huh? Okay.
SDCC reveals. We don't have to talk about just this. We can talk about anything SDCC, but I've got you guys in a certain order on the screen. Jim, opening thoughts on the SDCC reveals, this or others?
I definitely want to start with Eternia, and I know Jay has a lot to say here, so I'm not going to take too much time with regard to it. It was very interesting to see this. I had talked about this a couple weeks ago. I was kind of like, well, it would make sense if they're going to do a crowd-funded playset, that Eternia would have to be the one to do it. And when they first revealed it, just kind of like, here's a picture, I was worried that it was going to be just a regular Mattel Creations. Here it is, and you have 8 seconds to get it, but they're going to do the crowdfund, which, given the possibility of the alternative with the history of Mattel Creations, I was like, well, at least we're going to have a chance to get it. The only reservation I have left about it is what that price point's going to be, which we can discuss as a group. But as long as they nail that, the rest of it should be okay, because it looks like it's bigger than the old one. All new sculpts, a lot more features. Super stoked on it. And I'll just give a stinger at the end so I don't take up too much time. Grizzlor, round face, Mattel Creations exclusive. Huge miss. I'm angry about it. That's all I have to say for the moment. And then the Snake Men are amazing.
And that's one of the things that I knew was going to happen, and why I brought Grindhead on here. He doesn't shy away from the facts. He's not going to give always the popular opinion. He'll give his honest opinion, and that's about as candid as you can get. And you're right about the Grizzler. I'm like, what are they doing here?
Makes zero sense.
Yeah. All right, Mega J, opening thoughts on Eternia or any other SDCC reveal?
So Eternia for me. Oh my! Well, first of all, Ken, gosh darn it, we were completely. They threw us for a loop. Honestly, they threw us for a loop, and the article was written in such a way. You and I were on a stream, and the article that we dissected, right? Surprisingly, before anybody else did, because literally the next day, Toy News International decided to actually read the article and figure it out too. So we thought the way everything was worded, because it was kind of like, here's the problem. The problem with the written word versus the spoken word is when you write something, you're very deliberate. When you speak, you use inflections to actually indicate what you're trying to say. So unfortunately, taken verbatim, Ken and I read it as the larger figures, and we're going to introduce a playset. So we just took that to say, oh my God, there's going to be a Masterverse playset on the way. What we didn't realize was they were talking about larger format items. And this you can't get much bigger than this. Like, people are saying that this thing's gigantic. Now, we should also note that prototypes always always shrink in size. Like I've learned that. In multiple conversations with Scott, with Ramen Toy, with what happened with Snake Mountain, which when I got it, I was like, this thing's huge, but it's not as big. Like I was like, oh God, thank goodness it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. It's actually pretty decent size. I can put this on the table. So this could possibly shrink it down about another 10%, perhaps even 15%. So it might be closer to the original size of the original playset, because right now people are saying this thing is absolutely gargantuan, and they're literally wondering, how the heck am I going to get this in my house? So first thoughts, because I've rambled on as long as I always do. Sorry about that. First of all, it is gargantuan. It's absolutely freaking huge. If it actually ends up being this size, I'll be honest with you, I think there are going to be a lot of people that will actually be a barrier to entry for this. That's the first thing. Secondly, the price. We have no idea. We have absolutely no idea. I was like on several of my live streams this week, because I've had tons, and I'm actually shocked that I've had so many live streams this week. A lot of people are just speculating. Actually, a lot of people had hoped, like Tidarian Hanger, Mike over at Tidarian Hanger, he was hoping that this would have gone to retail and we would have seen 150, maybe 200 US. I was already shaking my head. No, there's no way this thing's going to be 150. That's impossible, right? But then the news came, the rumors started coming out that it was going to be crowdsourced, and I was like, As soon as I heard crowdsourced, they always price. And here's the thing about crowdsourcing: they always price the crowdsource on the minimum requirement run. Okay, they don't price it. They do not price it on, if we get 5,000, we're going to do this. If we get 10,000, we're going to do. No, they leave it at the minimum requirement run. Why? Because it's a guaranteed number that they can profit off of after the fact. So even if they hit their 10,000, even if they hit their 10,000 minimum requirement run, which I don't think it is with this beast, it's probably going to be 5,000, because it's just so little that they're expecting to sell. If they actually hit that 5,000 run, we are looking probably at anywhere between 300, 350, 400, possibly even $450 US. Like Snake Mountain, right? From recollection was $499. Okay, from my recollection. And by the time it landed here in Canada,
the Super 7 one, right?
Yeah, the Super 7 one, yeah.
It was either $499 or $599.
Yes, one of the two numbers. And you know what? I think it was $5. I believe it was the $599 price.
I think so. I think you're right.
Because
it was quite a bit more than the Thunder Tank. So.
Yeah, because by the time it landed here in Canada, I had paid $850 landed. So, but that's Canadian. That's Canadian. Okay.
Yeah, but that's probably 600 becomes 800 after exchange, then at least $50 to ship it, assuming you don't get hit with customs.
Exactly.
So, unless you did. Now, I'm surprised to hear. I'm surprised to hear that the place that's shrink 10 to 15%, because I seem to recall Bobby Valla saying that the action figures from his Paint Masters shrink about 4%, but that might be the difference between a figure to a play set. And I got a lot of thoughts on this. Well, a few thoughts on this as well. But as Jay's saying, go back and check out that video where we speculated wrong that it was going to be the Masterverse Castle Grayskull. Oh, Corey, you've been following the news this week?
Yeah, I saw this morning. I love it personally. I kind of missed my opportunity with the original. It was a little cheaper when I started collecting, and then they kind of shot up in price. I was because I started about 4 years ago. But most people I know that have them don't really want to set them up because they're so fragile and the tracks break and stuff. So just having one that you can actually, for me especially, like I would throw this into a stop motion and try to use it for something and bring it to life. So something like this is ideal for me. I started off with the GI Joe, and I was breaking a lot of stuff by accident. So when these retro lines come along, especially the MOTU Origins stuff, where they're the essence of the old ones, but way more articulated and posable, then it's perfect for me. I love it.
Well, yeah. If we do see it in stop motion, a lot of people are going to be interested in that. I have noticed, speaking of your stop motion, you used to only do stop motion, but you started interspersing a few individual figure reviews in there, like the Night Creeper and things like that, which is good because it'll keep your channel relevant in terms of YouTube being able to find you. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And yeah. And if I forget to say it at the very end, I want to say all the channels here are in the description section of this video. So please subscribe to Grindhead Jim. He does his toy grinds every single Monday. usually while I'm at work. So I usually just go and say, "Hey, buddy," and then I pop out. Then I see an hour later if he's still on, and then I'm like, "What did I miss?" So Mega J, subscribe to him. Let's get him to 10,000 subscribers, and Corbra, let's get you up there as well. Regarding all this, now I have a feeling this is going to be around 3 to 350 US on the Kickstarter. And thank you, Ryan, for getting everyone's channels there. 3 to 350 US, and I'll say it because the last time Mattel did a crowdsource thing, it was the WWE New Generation ring. Now, I think the footprint of the ring will be a little bit less, but it automatically came with the lights and sound stage there, and then they threw in some wrestlers there. I think it was Doink the Clown, Macho Man, Diesel, and a ringside table. So I figured this being a little bit more plastic and possibly having some other unlocks, I think it's going to be 3 to 350. Mega J, I didn't actually realize that they base the order on the minimum order quantity, which doesn't surprise me because, and for those who don't know, the factory, and Mega J, correct me if I'm wrong, the factory determines the minimum order quantity at a certain price. So they might say something like, okay, at 5,000 units, we can do this for X price. And if for some reason Mattel Creations gets 15,000 orders, that would actually change the MOQ at that price point. Mega J is nodding, so I think that's actually true. So MOQ isn't just one fixed thing. It's MOQ just to get it into production, and then there's another MOQ to get you the next price break, I think.
So yes, of course. If we're and this is something that a lot of people don't understand. So a lot of people are very upset with Super 7. A lot of people actually, when NECA first started coming out, they were upset with their original price points, because a lot of people forget that when NECA first came out, they were in the $30 and $40 per figure range. Once they actually started getting the stores, their price point dropped. So we also got to remember that. So just like economies of scale, the more you buy, the less it costs, right? So I've been in the printing industry for decades. Okay, I cut my teeth there. I've been doing it for years. And basically you start off at 10,000, you get a price. You go to 20,000, that price literally drops. You go to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, and it's pennies to the sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it continues to drop exponentially. And we also got to remember that Mattel's not stupid. So and they're a gigantic conglomerate. So the more they do, the harder they squeeze. So not like it doesn't matter that their supplier gave them a price at 10,000. They're like, oh, you can do better. Why? Because that supplier does not want to lose that contract, right? So they will literally squeeze them to the point where, like, okay, fine, we can survive on this, and that's basically where they end up being. And that's not the minimum. They will go with the first price because that's the price they say, yeah, we can make a profit here plus some, right? And then they will actually pad that another 10 grand, right? Because they want to make that money, right? They want to cover their costs. So what happened? Like if we take the HasTag blah blah blah. If we take the HasTag HasLab as an example, not only did they meet their minimum requirement order on the first 8 hours, they profited already. Like not a considerable amount of profit, but they already profited. Not to say that millions of dollars is not a profit. Obviously, it is. But they had already covered everything that they needed to, and they were laughing to the bank at that point. And now they're to the moon. And I'll say a little bit of something about the HasTag later, but I want the others to jump in as well.
No problem. With regards to the other releases, whether it's just the ones on screen here that I grabbed from, what page is that from? Toy News International. Toyark, sorry. Yeah. And just very quickly here before I jump in with some thoughts, thank you, Nolan, for the super sticker and the $3 Canadian. Much appreciated. Always happy when people can support the channel in the ways that they do. Now, let's just talk about some thoughts about. We can look at the reveals that are here on the screen, or we could talk a little bit about the 2-pack of He-Man and Skeletor, or the one with the chromed weapons. Jim, any other releases you're excited for?
I mean, all of these that you're discussing now, like they're all very exciting in as much as they're kind of hitting a lot of different corners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after seeing some of the Masterverse reveals, it kind of made me go, man, maybe I should have given Masterverse a fairer shake initially, because I'm going to be retail complete with Origins. That's a commitment that I made to myself, and I'm sticking to it. but the Masterverse keep getting better and better and better. And between the 40th anniversary versions of He-Man and now Skeletor, plus these and some other things that have come out, it's a really compelling line, and the price point's not bad for what it is. And this is going to be a controversial statement.
Mhm.
Masterverse is classics for people who didn't get classics. Is kind of what it boils down to for me.
Boom.
And I think it's a huge opportunity. I think it's a smart business move. And whether you collect one line or the other or both, I really don't think you can go wrong. But Masterverse, to me, feels like something you can pick and choose and get your favorite characters and not, go broke getting them. And these newer reveals really lean into Filmation a little bit and some
Mhm.
other parts of the history. Um, I think it's a weird misstep, although it's consumer friendly without intending to be. That they put up the 40th anniversary He-Man Masterverse for pre-order weeks before this 2-pack was revealed, which then to me leads into the idea of like, well, they're going to reuse that buck. We're going to get a Skeletor in Masterverse that's a classic mold. So I'm like, I don't need the die-cast weapons. The price isn't horrible, but I don't need it. I'd rather just have a regular retail release version of it so they can make that money and I can have that figure and not be a huge deal. Not to mention the fact that things sold out in like 0.8 seconds or some trash like that.
Yeah.
There's a, but I will say, by and large, I don't think there's a bad reveal in terms of the product on offer. Some of it has to do with method of delivery or price point or something like that, exclusivity or whatever the case may be. But as far as just here's the stuff we're doing, without exception, possibly the Fallout thing or Fall Guys, whatever the hell that is. That I just don't have any interest in. But everything else is like, hey, that makes sense and it's a smart move. I'm
Fair
excited
enough.
for 'em.
No, a lot of good thoughts going on there. Corey.
Who sculpted the Masterverse? Was that the Four Horsemen too, or?
I don't think so. I think the Four Horsemen, I think, are pretty much exclusive to Mythic Legions and their own brand right now. I don't think they've sculpted for somebody else in a good number of years. I don't know if you guys, if the rest of you guys know who sculpted these, but
It's Mattel in house from what I've seen.
well, yeah, I'm just
They had an entire designers panel, so all of the designers were at a panel yesterday.
Okay.
I can bring later on. I can bring up a shot of all the designers. There are no name tags though, so that's the only problem. We don't know their names. So.
No,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I got to check them out a little closer, the Masterverse ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
I
sure.
want to get more into the classics, so if it's along those lines, that's perfect.
Some people are saying exactly what Jim said there, which is for people who missed out on classics, Masterverse is one way to do it. Like I didn't start classics until about 2017 myself, so it was well with Super 7 by then, and I was paying the aftermarket prices for the Matty collector stuff. So Boba Hicks, Mark, thank you for the super chat. Do you think we could see any of these Mattel exclusives show up at retail overseas? Mega G, I'm going to throw this one to you.
Okay, yeah. Throw that one to me because I'm the one who talks about it, right? So Jesus Christ. All right, so I've mentioned this a number of times. A good example of what Boba Hicks is talking about is back in I think it was 2019 or 2020, one of those 2 years. So sorry, 2020. It would have been 2020 or 2021. I can't remember anymore. We got inklings of a possible and sorry, this is going to be outside the MOTU first.
That's okay.
We got inklings of a possible Zartan. It was actually supposed to be an SDCC exclusive, actually, now that I remember, but it ended up being a PulseCon exclusive, and we got inklings of a possible deluxe figure, and then pictures started showing up on the internet of this weird looking Zartan deluxe figure in a box, and it had this amazing looking fold out case, and people were like, "Is that fake? Is that custom? Is that real?" Nobody knew what the heck it was. And where were these pictures coming out of? They were coming out of Singapore. There's a guy there who basically somehow is getting figures ahead of everybody. Like he got pretty much the entire stock of the PulseCon exclusives for that year. I believe it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But yeah, that was insane, and it ended up being true, right? Because everyone was denying it. Hasbro was denying it, right? So that comment really does come out of that question. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but there are also additional figures that are being reviewed now, which have not even been announced in some cases from the Transformers line. And some reviewers are actually getting their hands on these, and the community is actually wondering, where the heck are they getting this from, right? And the reality is that we already know this, and it's not a secret. Everything's manufactured out of China. Okay,
Yeah.
everything's manufactured out of China, and there are ways to actually get contraband to somebody. Now, channels have not been able to show the boxes in most cases, but in some cases they actually have done a full unboxing of these figures. I'm specifically talking Transformers because for whatever reason Transformers seem to be the easily accessible, but that's not a surprise considering that KO Transformers are a big thing in China. So with that preface, I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think so. And I'll go ahead and say I don't think so because Master still hasn't actually had that penetration on the wider market.
Mhm.
And the reason that is because they don't have a movie. They just got a TV series. So I think if something's going to become contraband quickly, it's probably going to be Masterverse or possibly the Netflix version, because they both have media tie-ins.
Yes.
Origins actually has no media tie-in. It's relying solely on nostalgia and possibly the colors and the bright colors that could get kids into it. I know a number of collectors who literally have basically given up their collections to their kids, and they are enjoying it ever so much than they ever would having them sit on their shelves. It is just an absolute boon to actually have Masterverse, to have Origins back in the format that it's in, to be able to share with your kids. So, so to the original question, I believe that the answer is no. I don't think so. And I'll just double. And I know why Ken sent this to me, because the whole idea with what happened with Wondar, which is an absolute cluster F, it started the whole reason it became the way it did was because in my opinion, somebody at Mattel made an executive decision to actually leak out contraband into the market. Because why was it only showing up in California, and why was it only a small sector of California? And distributors who really had no idea what they were doing with it, they're like, "What the heck is this?" And they just put it on their shelves. That to me seems like a marketing move. And you know what? It just created this entire groundswell in the community, and people went nuts. And the damn thing sold out in less than 3 minutes.
Given that it shipped so quickly, much like the exclusives from last fall, okay, it certainly means that between the leak, right, of the contraband and the fact that it sold out as quickly as it did, plus the shipping, leads me to believe, my theory is that this was originally going to be an exclusive for either SDC or whatever PowerCon is known as now, and they scrapped those plans, and rather than making him a retail release, which seemed to be what they were talking about at the time, it didn't really, I never heard any tell of it being an exclusive until the last second, and then it's like, and it's gone. So when you're manufacturing it, you're putting up an exclusive, you have a limited number, it's just a series of decisions that make you go, well, it seems designed to screw the average buyer. I could go on for a blue streak about that aspect of it, but I won't for now. But it's just one dar and Coldar and all the dars. I'm just like, what do you could make more money, and you
They
don't
could.
want to.
They could. Yeah.
The whole
I
thing.
know.
I could have a whole show about that alone.
It's makes such a headache. And Jay addressed that thing about contraband for Transformers. There are so many third-party companies, like he was alluding to there, that the contraband thing is completely out of whack when it comes to Transformers, because it's not just Hasbro or Takara. It's every single third-party company under the sun out there. Michael Traverso, thank you for the super chat. I think I know you from Discord. Geek Dad Life has a Discord, and there's a guy there named M Traverso. I'm pretty sure you're the same guy. That's here. I hope you guys address the toxicity and negativity around potentially missing out on an action figure due to exclusivity. We have been inundated with some very cool MOTU products. Let's be chill and enjoy. Missing out on, yeah, see, just earlier I saw Drew G's toy box. Jim, I think you know him. On Instagram basically said that he missed out on the No Holds Barred set and another set within a few minutes because he was sitting at checkout for 15 or 20 minutes and he missed out on it. And I know what it's like because last year I missed out on the Mattel Ultimate Sergeant Slaughter, and a friend got one. We both said, okay, let's both try to get two, and I missed out and he got two, and it worked out that way. So I mean, I'm not sure how to slice this pie. If anyone wants to take it on,
sure. This is something I've been talking about a lot lately, so I'm happy to start the conversation. And anyone who has an opinion, if you want to jump off, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. Essentially, whether we look at the limited runs or the method of delivery, they have been continuously putting out figures at Mattel Creations and also not fixing their cart system in any way that seems catered to individuals wanting the figure. There's several things they could do right now. If you set the limit to one, then at least that it would increase the chances of the average person getting one by, triple, right? 300% right there, because if you just lower that could be something. If you made it so that the cart would actually reserve that figure for even 5 minutes, although it should be 10 or 15, to give them time to get through the cart. Like the real life equivalent would be if I grab a figure off the shelf and as I'm walking to the checkout line, someone came up and took it and I had no recourse. Like, you have to think about these things in terms of what is fair to the collector. And I had an argument on YouTube comments today saying like, well, just trying to talk about how it's all profit driven. Well, of course it's profit driven. It's a business, folks. And the end result is that the picture that is painted here with Mattel Creations exclusives, the figures up to this point, is we're going to sell out. We get to talk numbers, and we're making our profit either way. We don't care who buys them. And that's fair enough. I understand, but I don't have to like it. And I love the products that they're putting out. I think designs and the choices they're making of what they're putting out, when they're putting it out, for the most part, all make sense. My concern is with the method of delivery, and it's bottom line, extremely poor customer service. And as the customers, the people that this is supposedly aimed at initially, they should be listening a lot harder, with the caveat that I also understand that the people designing this are not making these decisions. These are business decisions. And in some cases, there are figures we would never see unless they were exclusive. All I ask is, if that's the route you want to go, you should take more and more steps to protect the consumer, because you're going to make your profit either way. The question is, does it take 8 seconds to 10 minutes to do it? Or does it take maybe a half hour or an hour? And then don't even get me started on international sales, because time zones are a thing, and that's just
yep.
Like, I understand the business side of it, but I feel like you could have your cake and eat it too if you're Mattel, if you took a few more steps to protect the consumer.
Absolutely, very well said. It's hard to follow either of you guys on that. Corey, any thoughts on that? I know you've been a little quiet. I promise I'm not ignoring you.
No. The only thing I can think of that is I'm just a little more patient in that regard. Like, I don't really work too hard to spend my money. Where I am, it seems to cross my path eventually. All this stuff, someone will eventually sell it. So, I do it for fun. So when it gets to be a frenzy where everybody's after the same thing, I kind of just opt out and wait a bit. And then if I got to pay, like I pay some of the people around here finder's fees and stuff, for finding me toys. But I don't mind, then that kind of keeps that stress part of it out of it for me. Some people like the thrill of the hunt, I guess, and not me.
If you have enough of a network of friends to be able to to be able to have someone say, hey, I got an extra $1. Like this happened to me a few weeks back. I didn't even try for the $1 because I'll admit I don't actually collect MOTU Origins. Right? I'm a classics guy, and I get the odd Masters of WWE Universe. By odd, I mean one figure, and I mean Sarge. But when it comes to that, if you have enough of a network, a lot of people will say, hey, I got an extra. Do you want one? In fact, a Brick Something here in the chat was one of the ones who offered the $1 to me, and so did a gentleman named Troy, who's one of my top level patrons. And both times I said, offer it to somebody else. I'm not looking for a $1 in the Origins line. I've got one in the Classics line. It's the line I collect. So part of that, rather than getting to checkout and then saying, oh, darn, I missed it, talk to people around you. You know, get on your Facebook groups, get on your Discord chats, get on your message communicator, Instagram, whatever it is. Jim Largo, good to see you here, and I appreciate the super chat. He says here, great discussion, gentlemen. I wasn't a MOTU fan until Grindhead Jim's enthusiasm rubbed off on me, and Grindhead does know how to be an influencer, and it's not just this, it's heavy metal and other movies and stuff like that as well, that he can definitely be a bit of an influencer on. And Jim Largo finishes off by saying, I'm really enjoying the Masterverse and new Eternia figures. I prefer that scale myself as well. Paints Toy Samples, welcome. And one thing I'm going to continue to lead into here is our own personal collections. And some of you guys sent in some photos here. Grindhead, I'm going to lead back to you here. You sent in this photo and another one. So talk us through your collecting of the modern MOTU.
So basically, I started collecting them basically in July of last year. I had looked into them, figured out like, oh, this is like many collectors. I said, well, this is like the perfect answer because vintage, it's really hard to find things complete. The relative cost, even though it was still somewhat low at the time, it was a way to get at a decent price point something that reminds me of the old, but is a little bit better. And I dove right in. I've got every wave up to this point, barring a few pre-orders that are, taking their sweet time from Big Bad. And I want to be retail complete with it. What you're seeing here, this is just my desk display. That little black cylinder is the bottom of a monitor. I just didn't bother to take the arm off. And these are just the figures I like to have next to me. So you've got a vintage sculpt He-Man, vintage sculpt Skeletor. I do have the originals. I'm in the minority. I love all the alternate heads. They provide great options. Here you have the same figures with different poses and then the heads are coming from the Terror Claws and Flying Fist He-Man, and you have the alternate gripping hand, which I gushed over in my review of those figures, despite my concerns about the action feature, etc., ad nausea. I have a Castle Grayskull behind me, bunch of figures on card, and I have a tub full of bagged figures. I have multiples of the battle sleds. This is something where, if we take the exclusivity stuff off the table for a moment, by and large, the vast majority of this line is accessible if you're diligent and you have that network of friends. It's affordable, and it's a slam dunk as a toy line, generally speaking. And I'm so in love with it. Every time I get a new figure, I gush over it. I can't wait to open it, but then I have to wait until I'm ready to make a review. And it's like, I want to open them. But they also display really, really well on all fronts. Just amazing stuff. And I hope it lasts at least a few more years so we get all the characters, and I do mean all of them from the original line, plus some of the new stuff and everything in between, because I think this toy line has legs, and I will follow it to the grave of the toy line, because I don't want to die before it's over.
Let's hope you don't either. And yeah, this does give us another opportunity, and these figures fit into the original vehicles as well because of their scale, and you don't have to worry about their leg bands breaking. I think that might have been said earlier. As for, sorry, I'm just going to toggle a little bit here. I've managed to lose my place. Now, for me personally, did that show up? Yeah, it did. Okay. Before Origins came out, I went with the Masters of the Universe Classics because when the He-Man cartoon showed up again on Netflix, I'm not talking about the cartoons now. I'm talking about the original cartoon when it showed up again. And then I started getting into the 2000X series. And while I'm not a big fan of those toys, that cartoon is really freaking good. It expands the history of He-Man. It goes back to King Grayskull. It establishes Keldor before Skeletor. It just had so much going for it. And these were the figures that I envisioned in my head. They were gorgeous. Masterverse wasn't available yet. So there I was buying these particular figures. So this is my choice for modern MOTU. And this just goes back to what title the video is. A new renaissance. Modern renaissance for MOTU. And you saw just a second ago, Grindhead has the Origins figures. I've got the Classics figures. Others like the Masterverse. So yeah, that was my share for the day. Corey, did you have anything you wanted to talk about with the moderns at all? I know we didn't get around to pulling up a photo for you, but
I'm kind of more in line with the Origins, I guess. They were the slam dunk for me.
good.
You know, just I got a run of them sealed, and I got the ones that I've opened up. So after completing most of the GI Joe stuff, it got pretty expensive. So by the time I got to MOTU, I was on board for something a little cheaper than hunting the old stuff. I do have it all loose, but like I said, with stop motion, you know, you can't really do much with the old figures the way their legs are and stuff. So
Yeah, well,
it's a win-win for me.
And you're right, because the way those scale, especially with the Masters of WWE Universe, you can do a lot of stop motion with those, and the wrestling ring. You've got Orko there announcing people in. Yeah, you're quite a bit going on there. So yeah, before I turn it over to Mega J, Michael Traverso, thank you again for another super chat, saying exactly the positive take I would like to hear more of. Cheers, Grindhead Jim. That's yep. I'm enjoying Michael's positive outlook on some of this stuff. Bethany Beth asks, do we know when the Snake ones go for pre-order? I personally don't know. I hadn't followed this morning.
Based upon the panel they had yesterday, it appears that wave 1 of the Snake Men stuff, both the exclusives and the retail, are targeted for fall. So I would guess pre-orders probably late August, early September, with a release somewhere in October, November, based upon what little they said yesterday. Was that the impression you got, Jay?
Yeah, I had the same idea. They did mention that most of the releases were going to be in the fall, and they keep towing that line, including the 4-pack. The 4-pack, they mentioned that was going to be in the fall. They mentioned that even Eternia, they talked about it. So it's going to be an expensive fall. Let's just be honest with that. It's going to be very expensive.
Oh, fair enough. And Jay, did you want to share screens on something, or did you just want to talk through your current collection?
Oh, I can just do. I'm just kidding. No, my current collection is okay. So, it's funny how because much like Jim, I started. And a lot of people probably won't believe this, but I only started collecting hardcore again about during the pandemic. That's actually what happened. It's actually what drove me. Because I was trapped in my house, and while I was there, I had a lot of time to think. And because I had a lot of time to think, I had a lot of time to watch YouTube, and I reconnected, my love of action figures by watching Pixel Dan all over again, because I love Pixel Dan. He's definitely an inspiration to many of us toy collectors, and he did a whole bit of coverage on the Real Ghostbusters reissue. And that just sparked my imagination. I was like, oh my God, the Real Ghostbusters, I had those when I was a kid. I broke every single one of those streams. I want those back. So I went on a mission to go find them. And if anybody knows anything about Canada, we can't find anything up here. All right. So basically, if unless you're willing to hunt like an animal, you won't find stuff here. It does show up, but it's very, very sparse, and you have to be as fast as possible, because there are a lot of collectors out there. There are a lot of scalpers, right? There are a lot of people out there who hoard, these treasures. So, Jim has mentioned it, and I think we've all mentioned it. You need connections in the industry, in the community. You really do. And I was lucky enough around the time to have a few friends who were looking around for me, and somebody actually, his what's it called, Kid Chuckle, my good friend Kid Chuckle on YouTube. he basically said, "Hey, you know, they're here at Walmart in Agent Court. I'm gonna stash them for you." I'm like, "What?" So I ran over there. He put them behind a whole set of bikes, and I didn't even need to do that because there were 2 sets there. Again, we friends help friends, and you know what? That's what we need to do. We as collectors need to help each other, right? And it's such a wonderful community we have here. Like, seriously, everyone's so giving, everyone's so generous, and this is the type of thing. It's like being back in grade school again. You know what I mean? Where one buddy supports another, right? It's an awesome feeling. Seriously, this is a true renaissance for anybody who was born in the 80s, 90s. You know, this is incredible because we're seeing toy lines we've never seen before. But in terms of like my collection, as I said, I'm kind of dumb. So basically, I see something and I buy it. So, you know, again, I'm kind of stupid that way. So my collection is basically an eclectic mess, but it is measured. I don't just buy something that I'm not into, right? So my main lines are a Master Universe, #1. I'm a huge Thundercats fan, but that doesn't need to be hunted. That just has to be, you know, purchased at a very, very high price. But my main lines that I actually hunt for are Master Universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Power Rangers, and then I resisted as long as I could, just like Jim. I resisted as long as I possibly could, but then the freaking Mandalorian came, and I had no freaking choice. I had to actually buy my first Star Wars set. Actually, that's a lie. No, hold on. Let's backtrack that. No, they had a $9 sale for Star Wars retro cards, and I literally went, you know what, screw it, and I started like just collecting as many as I could. It was more of an Easter egg hunt at that point. But then, and I was like, whatever, I'll shove it to the side. But then the Mandalorian started, and it was over. It was literally just over. I started collecting every single Star Wars thing, and my roommate literally is pissed off at me every single day because the whole house is full of toys. It literally is. So yeah, don't do what I do, guys. Don't don't do it the way I do it. Don't not do it the way I do it. Like, you know, be smart. Save some money because honestly, anything shiny seems to attract my attention. That's not entirely true. But you know what? The thing I do have to say is stick to the lines you love, because there's a lot of stuff I have actually accidentally bought, and I've regretted it actually, and I'm still but I keep holding on to it. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Anyway, don't be me.
I need to apologize to Canadians, by the way, Canadian MOTU collectors in particular. Last summer, when I was looking for a Roboto, which is a Wave 2 figure, I managed to get one at a really good price from a Canadian eBay seller, so I technically stole Roboto from Canada. I'm sorry. But that figure is up for pre-order again on Big Bad Toy Store, and I have one on pre-order. So if there's any Canadians that never got one, sub to the channel, give me a comment, let me know you need one. I'll save it for you because I want to pay it forward. So thank you, Canada, and also I'm sorry. Or sorry, depending upon what part of Canada you hail from.
And I just realized you're actually the only non-Canadian on this stream right now, but we have a good North American representation and diversity here. So definitely appreciate that. Well, you know,
guys, I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's fine. We've had quite a riveting discussion here so far, but the other topic that I wanted to touch on, and Scuba Pete wants to bust your balls.
Yes, I did, Pete, and I don't apologize for it, except for the apology I just made. Now I'm being confusing and I'm mixing messages, so that's your fault, and I blame you, sir. After Batman hostage, sir. Watch your tone.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to touch on as well, and we can more than touch on it, we can go pretty deep into it, is how well the new figures, whether it's Masterverse Origins, the slightly older classics, CGI, not so much, but we can talk about it if we get around to it, is how well the new figures and new Renaissance of figures pay homage to the original figures. And you guys have touched on it by saying that this is what got you back in, but Corey, how you liking these compared to the old figures that we had as kids?
Yeah, I like them. Like the 2000X was kind of like they still paid homage to the originals, but they kind of enhanced them a little bit. But the new Origins, you know, they still do that. They have ones that pay homage to the different lines and stuff, to the new adventures of He-Man, still in the Origins, you know, packaging and everything like that, and the same mold. So, I mean, I don't know. I just went full blast with it. I think because being like Marvel was always huge my whole life. So when they got these figures, and He-Man wasn't that big, so you kind of got to grow with something. So I kind of liked collecting for that reason too. You know, being like the underdog as the toy line got bigger again. But I don't know. I I think they're great figures. The Origins, they capture the essence of the old ones, and you can pose them. They don't fall over. So I mean, what more could you ask for? And they got the price range, like they're affordable. So
It's the leg bands. I always say trying to pose a vintage figure versus an
Oh,
Origins figure. Oh man,
yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
let's
I was,
roll into it with your thoughts, Jim.
yeah, I was 5 years old when the original MOTU Vintage came out, and I was in right away. I remember distinctly getting Castle Grayskull, a slew of figures. I remember the day I got a Skeletor in a Children's Palace or a Toys R Us. I don't remember which it was.
Yep.
My grandmother bought it for me, and which was weird because she's like super Catholic, so she's buying me this demonic skull guy, which I always appreciated. But I have very fond, vivid memories of collecting the line as a child. And after a while, it became hit and miss because other toy lines came and went, and I was always pick and choose along the way. Right around the time the Snake Men stuff were coming out, I had moved on to other toy lines. I wasn't as interested, but I always kind of would take note. But it came down to you could have another He-Man figure, or you can have this new shiny thing that you really want as a child. So you had to. And those were one of the toy lines I had, collections that were the first to make their way to, Goodwill or a giveaway or a yard sale or something without my approval. And that always kind of stuck with me. So when the time came to start collecting again, the timing was right with Origins coming out. I'm like, that's what I want. I want those because as cool as the classics line is, as cool as the scale is even for the Masterverse, which I have some of those, there was something about tapping into that childhood memory, and it's the first time I held my vintage sculpt He-Man for the first time. I turned 5 all over again. Man down! Turned 5 all over again. I was filled with warmth. It reminded me of my parents, both of whom have passed sadly. And that's a big part of why I like collecting stuff that reminds me of those times because it connects me to them again. So for Origins to be this one-to-one with the vintage stuff, having those memories, but also being a top of the line kit bashing kit and great features and everything else at a good price point, it's something where there's a direct comparison. But if someone said you can start collecting vintage MOTU or Origins, I'll go Origins every single time with some vintage stuff in the mix. Like that's why I got a She-Ra Crystal Castle last year. It's
Yep.
why I
Ooh,
pieced
yes.
together a Snake Mountain because I'm worried that they're not going to make one, even though at this point you've got a Grayskull. Eternia is coming out. It's almost given that they're
Yeah,
going to do
foregone conclusion. Yeah.
as long as this happens. Now, there's still hope that that Snake Mountain will be retail because it's an easier thing to swallow for them. I understand why Eternia is not going retail, even if I wish that they would, but I get it. There's just no. It's very difficult for me to put in the words how much having access to this in real time at a decent price point, how much that means to me. Because vintage is such an uphill battle for any toy line,
Yes. Oh
especially
my
in a
God.
post-pandemic world. To be able to get something that's like 0.05 off from the originals, but also be technically superior in terms of articulation and stuff like that.
nice
Um,
brand new too.
yeah,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
you brought up the Masters of the WWE universe, like the aside from like them being interesting character designs and some cool wrestlers that I also adore, there's near limitless customization options with MOTU and use some of the alternate parts that come with them. So it's just like this is perfect. And now with the WWE, what are they calling it? Classics? Are they calling it that, or is it retro?
You're talking about the that the same size? I think it's just the
Yeah,
retro wave.
MOTU.
Yeah, I think it's the retro wave. Yeah.
I think that's a slam dunk too, because one, you're filling the same niche, but you're also giving us something we never got before, which is just straight, wrestler figures in that scale. There's a handful of them I'm really excited for, and it gives me, because I'll collect almost anything. The scales at MOTU at this point. Like I have these Savage World characters from like all the slasher movies that I just and up there I've got a King Shark from Suicide Squad because hello, like amazing. There's just so many opportunities that are kind of a mirror of the past where back in the day, vintage MOTU, there were like a billion knockoff lines you could mix and match
Yes,
things and
Galaxy
everything.
Warriors, all that.
And we're seeing a lot of similar things come out, even if they're coming from Mattel, that you can have all kinds of crazy reality bending ideas for display and customization. And I think it's uh, on the same token, it's that nostalgia, but also this exciting new thing that no other toy line has captured
I wonder
ever.
if that's why Hasbro brought the O-ring back, just because of the success of the Origins.
Yeah,
Possibly.
and they're just dipping their toe in the water rather than just going full tilt. I think with the O-rings, if they would just, take the safety off and just open fire, they would see a lot more success with that line. Even if it's not, you know, uh, a savvy business move, if you look at the marketplace, like Mattel took the risk. Hasbro needs to take more risks like that if they're going to see things move forward.
Yeah.
Like they took the calculated risk of pulling back some of the design choices in classifieds, and they're seeing greater success because of it. If they would just be a little bit more risque, if you will, maybe things like O-ring would make more sense. I feel like, go ahead, please.
No, well, I was going to jump in, but I came back, so I wanted to apologize first that I was that was work, so I had to take that call.
No, that's totally cool.
Yeah, like it's just one of the right now work is important. So but here's the thing about the O-ring that since we're bouncing into G.I. Joe now, I personally liked retro. I thought retro was a really good idea. I liked the I don't know, was it 12 PA or something like that. But it really did have a much better feel for me. O-ring, I think the feeling was that and still is that there are just way more O-ring fans out there than there are newer fans, right? And as you said, with the success of with the initial, I'll put it this way, with the initial success of Masters. And again, it always seems to be whoever jumps first, right? Is the one who either actually does the success or actually fails. So I think that after they saw the success, exactly what Cobra said, and with the success of of the Master Universe Origins, I think that they felt a little bit more comfortable going back to the O-ring, considering there were so many more fans there. And when they finally saw that, there is some sort of market there, now they're just going all in. And with the I think what tends to, I think what really happened is the last, I guess not these current ones, but the last two. Well, actually, it would be the last three, but technically the two before the lightsaber, the Rancor and the Sky Striker, right?
Yeah,
I think that was that is a case study that will be studied for generations. I really do think so. I think it is a wonderful case study on how to pivot and what one team did wrong and what one team did absolutely right.
Yes, absolutely.
Seriously. They pivoted the two teams, the way they actually pivoted, and the offerings that they actually put on those two campaigns. One was genius. The other one was absolutely tone deaf. It was a crazy thing and we saw it unfold right before our eyes, and quite literally, so many of us were covering it. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
Having said that, what they did with the Sky Striker, absolute genius, and it really did actually bring in a concept that people were like, holy crap, O-ring is coming back.
Yes.
Right? Especially with and you know what? Mickey Mouse Coco is like trending. I'm pretty sure it is, because right now it's something that they're literally using as an anchor right now. The last two Kickstarters, HasLabs
Crowdfund, yeah.
Well, they involve some form of Coco or some form of Mickey Mouse Coco, right?
Actually, that's a good point,
both
because
of them have it.
I mean, and like you said, it happened twice now. Like, it's not just the Sky Striker and the Rancor, but also with the Riva lightsaber and the Hiss tank, right? That one was a little bit less in parallel. Like, Riva kind of went down while
you know what? I'm not even, not that I don't want to freaking Star Wars. Anyway, I don't want Star Wars to take over this thing. But anyway, that is another case study in and of itself. And actually, you know what? Here's the thing. I think, and I'm just going to throw this out there, but we can move on as quickly as possible with this. I personally think Riva was a sacrificial lamb. I'm not even joking about that. I think Riva was actually a marketing ploy. I think they used Riva to actually propel what's it called, Obi-Wan. I think it was just to get people into other consciousness, because what with Riva's lightsaber, people just wanted to bash the hell out of it. So, and the thing is that the old saying is, any news, like bad news is good news, and basically they use that as a jump off point to get people to say, what's going on with this Star Wars thing? And you know what? People got interested, right? And collectors got interested. And they got interested because they're like, who is Riva? Like, why is she the focus, right? And why does she have her own lightsaber? It's because everyone recognized it. If you're a Rebels fan, right? If you're a fan of Jedi Fallen Order, if you're a fan of any of these media, you recognize the Inquisitor's lightsaber, right? Yes. And everyone's like, wow, it's an Inquisitor lightsaber. Oh, wait, that's not an Inquisitor. It's Riva's lightsaber. So the questions that kept going, and it just drummed up all this interest, and it forced all of us in the toy community to talk about it. So it was just one of these things where I think I truly believe it was a sacrificial lamb. It had no freaking stretch goals. Like, one of the first projects to ever, unless you count Cookie Monster, I guess. But when you think about, that's an entire thing in itself. Anyway, I'm gonna drop this because I know this is gonna start a whole kind of work. But people, please, comment on it.
I don't mean to like trampoline point, but I do want to real quick. The thing is, where I felt the biggest fail of Rancor was that could have been the centerpiece of getting people that aren't into collecting Black Series into collecting Black Series.
Bam! Great point.
And if they'd have handled that right, if from the get-go before stretch goals it had a Rancor keeper with it, and that the other figures that they were involving were on brand or something, it would have made a lot more sense. But it was a complete just Rancor, you guys want this? And then oh, you want more stuff for this obscene price? Here. It was a complete misstep, and
it was
the catalyst for Black Series. Now, since then, for completely different reasons, which is honestly the availability of Darth Vader from this Obi-Wan set, which I think is probably the best Darth Vader Black Series figure that they've come up with so far, personally, because it's a little bit of, New Hope, but with the newer kind of refined sculpt and so forth. Yes, the cardboard stretch goal. I am collecting a very limited number of the Black Series stuff. But had the Rancor not been such a slap in the face, I probably would have gotten one, and that would have been the start, because that's a great centerpiece for a collection. And they just they flop it out and they wonder why it gets cut off. And and that's true of almost every toy company right now. There's a lot of really, dude? You made that decision? Thankfully,
that's fine.
Mattel has probably the least number of those. It's the least bad. They still make some bad decisions. But
I know when Mattel Creations did their new generation ring, it was mid-campaign when they suddenly announced the ringside table and the ringside chairs, but they didn't do it as a last-ditch effort. I think what they did is they said, if you back before a certain date, we'll throw those in for those backers. I think I could be wrong. Whereas with the Malik Healy and the Rancor Keeper, I think they got to the final days and went, okay, this is our desperation Hail Mary play. And it's a good play at the wrong time. well, first off, it probably should have been in the base or the first stretch goal. Imagine if you're building some hype for the Rancor, and then all of a sudden, you get that as the first stretch goal. That's amazing, right? Now you're not going to get Ula or Hutzlayer Leia for obvious reasons, but still, it had so much potential, and I just completely forgot that this was a MOTU Renaissance.
This is why I said this. I said the exact. I was like, I don't want to do this, but I got to talk. Right? I damn Star Wars. And you know what? I'm. And here's the thing. Because you keep talking about the wrestling ring, this is going to end up in WWE eventually. Because I know your channel. So basically, we're gonna bounce all over the place. I have something to say about the ring and what you just said, but I would love to hear what Corbra has to say before I go ahead and rant a little bit. So
No, I'll let you guys finish up. I don't want to be the one taking us off topic. So
well, okay,
it's already too late. But
yeah,
I guess I started with the O-ring. So
we're way off topic as it is. Right? Anyway, I'll be quick about this one because I just want to cover what Ken said about the WWE ring. I'm sorry, Ken, but that crowdsource project was doomed to fail. I'm not even joking. If it wasn't for Robo, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for Michael, if it wasn't for a whole bunch of different YouTubers saying, "Hey, we just noticed this thing that Mattel Creations put up," like it was up there for weeks before anybody actually noticed it. There was no advertising. It was a sleeper. Nobody even knew about it. Like the marketing team there had no idea what they were doing. I'm just going to come out and say that. And it wasn't until some of us actually started noticing, hey, you know what? Maybe we should talk about this because it's dead. Like it went up and then it literally flatlined, right? And we're like, yeah. And you can go back, you can start watching everybody's channels, and they're literally like, yeah, maybe we should pay attention to this because it's actually pretty good value. It's got an entrance, it's got this, it's got that, right? It's got like different side skirts. And then everyone's like, but we wish we actually had more, stretch goals and some other incentives.
Well, you got three figures with it, which is not bad for.
No, that's fine. But if you watch my video and other people's videos, they literally say, yeah, it's got who was Nash, I think, or was it Diesel? I can't remember.
It was Diesel, but Kevin Nash, same guy, had Doink for some reason, but had a version of Macho Man.
No, but they weren't included. Right, those were stretch goals.
Yes,
right?
They were stretch goals.
That was the problem.
Was Diesel not part of the base?
Diesel was.
Diesel was part of the base.
He was the first, but that's not enough. What Jim says makes sense. You know what? Think about this. What they did. The HasLab has put a blueprint down for everything that we need to do for going forward. Introduce a decent character, right? Not that Diesel is not a decent character. He's fun. Don't get me wrong. And you know what? He's the right thing to do because he actually accurately showcases just how big that freaking thing is.
Right? Kevin Nash is 6'11" or something like that.
That was the right move, right, to actually do that. But what the HasLab does for us, the his tank, it laid down the foundation because actually, you know what? I'm gonna backtrack on that one. Mattel actually did solve the puzzle, right? But they did it in the middle of the campaign. And didn't actually throw it out there in the first 2 weeks, right? They said, okay, fine. We're actually floundering here, and let's another wonderful point of pivoting. Because then they said, okay, you know what? No one's backing this thing, so let's try something different. So they said, okay, if you back it by this certain date, right? They call it the early bird date, right? Now you get the announcer's chair, you get the announcer's table, you get 2 monitors, and anybody who actually backs it by this certain date, you actually get Randy Macho Man Savage in this freaking color with this suit we've never made. People lost their freaking minds, right? And all of a sudden, it got funded like very shortly after that, right? Again, but you know what?
Some of those parts probably, and I apologize for interrupting.
No,
but it speaks to the fact that those were probably going to be like, oh, these would be nice little like stretch goals and this and that. And they're like, well, we need to put these to push these to the front of the pegs and say, hey, this is part of it, And it was smart. Like Mattel at least understood, like, okay, they were paying attention, whereas Hasbro in the same position with, say, a Rancor, and I see what Rick's saying about the hiss and so forth and the rancor. Well, the difference being Mattel saw the writing on the wall and acted relatively quickly, which is why that succeeded versus a Rancor where there was like, and they weren't paying attention. They weren't addressing the problem head on. Whereas Mattel did, but did it in such a way that it felt like, well, we meant this. And just the optics are more intelligent, even if it's the exact same type of reactionary stuff. Like you say, it's a marketing move. But that's what you have to do when you're asking a higher amount of money for something that is a little bit boutique, a little bit, maybe it's not the smartest business put it on, even if we would that way. You have to be paying attention. If you're going to react quickly, react intelligently, and with your fans in mind. Hasbro hasn't really learned that lesson consistently across all of their teams, whereas Mattel, at least in real time, for a Kickstarter style backing crowdfunded thing, so far have a good track record on that. And someone had asked about Eternia again. I have a feeling that they'll take those lessons learned and apply it to Eternia, which is why I'm not freaking out about being on Creations. Like we said at the beginning of the show, the price point's the only thing that could potentially tear this down. And I don't get the impression that Mattel is that dumb. It's one of these things where it's such a slippery slope and a difficult thing to do without it feeling gougy. And I feel like the stage is set where they could really do something interesting with it. And I have my fingers crossed so hard that my knuckles are going to snap. We'll see. Maybe I'll eat my words, but hopefully not.
Fair enough. Well, I don't know. At this point, we're kind of in the open part of the chat because we've kind of touched all the topics very well, despite everything that's going on. I wasn't sure we would get through everything today, but future going forward for the Masters of the Universe brand, I see it more good than bad. As far as things are going, it's the best we've had since we were children. I don't know.
I agree. I totally agree.
Why right now is the perfect storm? Is it because they've been building momentum throughout the years? And is it going to last, or do you think it'll keep growing? Or
CGI show, man, that's got to take off.
Long, yeah, for the kids, eh?
I know it's not the He-Man we grew up with. I look at it and it just feels so different. And we all know how I really feel about Michael Bay Transformers, but if it keeps it relevant to the point that we can get some interest in the G1 stuff, okay.
There's only 2 Transformers movies in existence: the '87 animated flick and Bumblebee.
Okay,
and
there we go.
And Bumblebee's barely a Transformers film.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But it's close enough of a fan film that I'll accept it in canon. Everything else that has Michael Bay's name on it, those aren't Transformers films. That's a fact. I will hear nothing different.
I tend to agree with Jim. I think that's a wonderful note on that. For Masters, they've made it appears, and I think this is where we got it right, Ken. It appears that they are making a commitment to 2023, 2024. It appears that way.
Yes.
Again, anything can happen. Like, executives are executives. 40th anniversary, they're riding high on that right now. But if the sales dip and things, again, they'll pull a line at the drop of a hat. They really will. That's exactly what happened with the original line. But with these announcements that they've been making lately, for the most part, because for the most part, I think they're doing it right. The Snake Man is being well received. So is the Masterverse line right now. The anniversary sets, a lot of people have mixed reactions on that. The 4-set He-Man, but you know what? I think most people are going to pick it up, and the reason I say most people who can pick it up anyway, at least for the time being, because again, it's a celebration of everything He-Man. So for this year at least, I think we're safe. How far can we dig into the line? I mean, like when you really look at it, they have multiple He-Man iterations to go by, and they're dipping into all of them, right? We're seeing new adventures in Masterverse. We're seeing obviously Netflix in Masters. We're seeing them because of the 4-pack. We're seeing them now in Origins, right? And they keep pushing this envelope, and it's great for the brand. And now we're having a brand new concept with New Eternia, and where does that lead to us, right? So, and we're even seeing Princess of Power, right? So we're seeing a huge new golden age for Masters, and the real Achilles heel is because we're talking about it already. A lot of us, even here, is whether or not their distributors can actually keep up, because Walmart had the exclusivity for a year. They did nothing with it. They actually were stifling many of the smaller markets. There are smaller states that received absolutely dick all. Like, seriously, pardon my expression, but it's ridiculous. You should not be doing that to people who want this product. People were so excited when it was announced. And the real problem with a lot of people was they just did not have the availability. You're relying on smaller distributors like Big Bad Toy Store and arguably Entertainment Earth, to fill up that gap, right? But then if you make exclusivity on a product, they don't even have the ability to do that. And by the time they were allowed to actually do that, most of the excitement was gone, and everyone who was able to actually get them through separate channels, scalpers and resellers and everything like that. Everyone had already gotten their stuff, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, why is it all sitting on the shelves? Well, you let it sit, you didn't do the job you were supposed to do, right, to distribute this stuff.
And I agree everything Jay just said, so I'm not going to reiterate that. I think he's dead on with that. As we talk about the future, we talked briefly about the Netflix thing. Revelations had a very mixed response. I am in the minority when I say, to me, it was fine. There are a lot of things I would change about it. I don't think it ruined the Filmation cartoon. It was entertainment, it was whatever. Now, with the new Revolutions, which is like a season 2, but not really, because it's not a season 2 of Revelations, it's something different. Even though the same creators are involved, I'm wondering, do you think it's possible they might roll it back a little bit and kind of adjust fire to be a little bit more, for lack of a better term, traditional? Do you think that's a possibility? And if so, what influence would that have on the line? Okay. What do you guys think?
So I'll try to tackle this one. With Revelations, I know that the first half was very divisive. But when you got to the second half and He-Man came back and you had sort of a ramp up in the storyline through an explosive conclusion, you didn't have characters like Triclops who were treated kind of in a weird manner. They saw the media they saw the backlash from the first half. They saw a course correction to some degree, to a wide degree, I'll think, in the second half, because I would like to watch the second half again. I think with Revolution, we're going to see something a little bit more. Definitely traditional, something that will appease the critics, because they know that the audience is older for that one. So if they can get the critics to praise it, they will spread the word and kind of influence it without trying to reach every sector of the universe, trying to be a little bit of everything, but a little bit of nothing at the same time. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I was curious what Cobra was going to say. Yeah, I thought he was going to say something.
Yeah, so did I. That's why I went silent there.
No, I was just listening. Maybe you want to. I'm still kind of thinking. One of you guys want to go first?
Well, Jim, do you want to go first? Because I've got tons of thoughts on this, but
we can never we can always count on Jay to have quite a bit.
Yeah,
I like.
I'm Canadian, so I want to be polite.
Go ahead and start, and if I could interject something that we can
just jump in. Just jump in at any time. But okay, so I am okay. I am okay. So I famously, if anything, I'm one of the people in the community who has been very vocal about giving this series a chance. All right, that's always been my big thing. And I will go ahead and preface this by saying that Kevin Smith, Silent Bob, is a dick by nature. Okay, like let's all just let's just put it out there. Let's be like he's he's a lifelong reefer. He loves the he loves the weed and everything like that. But that's not something to judge a person on. Okay, and
he's a good comic writer though.
He's a great comic writer. He's and in reality he's probably someone who's a really good person to hang out with. Let's be honest with. But he made some obvious mistakes when promoting this series. He's been given the opportunity to tackle a brand which is 40 years old, and honestly, he did respect it. I will say it that way. But the way, and this is just we all have to understand, this is Hollywood. This is the way things work. But you really need to learn. You really need to know what to say in front of fans, especially if you're going to go to a place like PowerCon. Be very respectful with what you're saying. I think that's really where he got off on the wrong foot right at the beginning. He tried to come off as saying, "Yeah, I used to watch Masters when I was a kid, and I did this and I did that," and you know what? Okay, maybe you did at one point. Maybe there was something there, and maybe you rewatched the entire series just to get acclimated with it. But it's very, very obvious that Masters was not your number one series when you were growing up, because so many people took the opportunity to nitpick at everything he was saying. Like every single opportunity that he opened his mouth, they literally jumped down his throat. And there are several different YouTube channels who literally would just pretty much made a whole fuss about this and actually increased their viewership based on the idea that Kevin Smith was going to destroy Masters of the Universe, right? And I always saw that as disingenuous. I saw that as a furthering of your own brand, and I did not appreciate that. So I I did not engage on that level. Okay, and I refuse to engage on that level even now. But I maintain that we haven't even seen the damn thing. Why don't we watch it first, and then we'll make a decision on if this is a good series or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Came out, and then people freaked out, and I said, "It's not over yet.
Yes.
Calm the hell down."
Yes.
Which is why I didn't do a video about it until after it was done.
I remember that video because you finished the series before I did, Jim, and I was like, "Ooh, I wonder what Jim's gonna say." And then you kind of went positive about it, and then okay, I'm gonna watch it now, and then I went back to watch your video after the fact, and giving it a chance is key. And now what hooked me in is Kevin Smith wrote some really great comics that I'm a big fan of. He wrote Daredevil Yellow, and he wrote Green Arrow Quiver. So for me, I was excited about it. But yes, he's a ongoing adulthood reefer all the time. So you don't know which Kevin Smith are you going to get. Are you going to get the absolute dead brilliant one, or are you going to get the one who kind of just does what he feels like regardless of history and all that?
And to speak to that, like the guy didn't really start smoking pot in earnest until about 10 years ago. And then, so that became what I call Kevin Smith Phase 2. Because prior to that, he had tons of nerd cred, and
Okay.
Start smoking pot, and now we're getting like the super fanboy who, love him or hate him, he loves everything. He'll cry at anything, which I really hope that he cries at the Adventures in Game Chasing when he sees it for review on his film festival. Kevin, please admit us. I love you enough. But all joking aside,
this guy.
then you have the fact that a few years ago he had a heart attack that should have killed him.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got a guy who smokes pot, who has, he's got a pretty good revenue, income going for him with his company, between his comic shop, his merchandise, his podcasts, and the tours that he does. The guy's not hurting for money. But when you put a product in front of him, he tends to be very positive about it. But on top of all of that, now you've got a guy who smokes pot, is getting older, and now has nothing to lose because everything's borrowed time as far as he is concerned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have to take what he says with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, Kevin's enthusiastic about this. He's a showrunner.
Yeah.
He's not writing everything. He gives an overview of the story he wants to tell, and the writers go flesh it out.
Yeah.
And given the synopsis they were given, I think the show was very well written. That stayed within the lines of what they did. Yeah. And something I never hear anyone talk about at length is that Revelations especially with character deaths for one
Mhm.
thing,
Yeah.
is the adult equivalent of going to see the Transformers animated film as a kid in the theater.
Mhm.
It's a very,
Mhm.
very parallel thing. So I understand why that's divisive, but I also felt that is some ballsy storytelling, which is what kept me hooked. Even if there are certain parts I'm like, what?
Yeah.
By the end of it, I said, this is a good piece of narrative, even if I don't think that I would have made those choices.
Mhm.
I did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Hordak. Hello.
Yes, that'll be great. So I do want to address something in the chat. A bunch of people are asking, like, why are we so judgmental about the smoking of pot? It's not so much that. It's that it's an easy thing to kind of cop out to when people say they didn't like the first half of Revelations. Look, the second half was so good. He probably wrote them together. Clearly, it's not the pot, right? I'll be perfectly honest. I have some gummies in my fridge right now. So I'm no one to judge on that. So for everyone in the chat who's wondering, like, why are we being judgmental? I don't think it's us being judgmental. More so is it's this ongoing narrative that's been put out there about Kevin Smith. And I don't have an opinion one way or the other on that, because some people say, oh, that influences writing getting worse or something along those lines. I can't say whether it did or didn't. It's just, it's out there. That stereotype is out there. It's not us. And I do apologize if people think that we're judging, because I know the guys here, I know we're not judging, because I know you guys and I know myself. So I do apologize to the chat.
I made the comment based on his own admission that he's a pot lover. That's actually why I said it. It wasn't meant to disassociate from everyone who smokes pot. That's not what I was trying to say. I was saying he's a self-admitted. I should have said that. He's a self-admitted lover of pot, right? Like he literally touts it as he's an advocate for it, right?
Yeah.
Because the states have not unified. The states have not unified an idea of legalizing pot like they have here in Canada. By the way, guys, we're legalized up here.
We're legalized in Canada. So yeah, I do apologize for the impression we could be leaving on there. But because I know you guys, I kind of just let it go and I kind of jumped on it myself. But I do got to bear in mind some of the people who are watching us don't know that and are not as anyway.
Have something.
Can I comment on that? I watched Revelations with my buddy there. He's more left leaning, I'm more conservative, but we both enjoyed it. Like it's beautiful. Like all the play sets are almost identical. It was really complex story. Like the writing was complex. Started off a little slow. I can understand why some people maybe didn't like it because it was following along the lines of Tila, but then you kind of understand how females might feel about that. Like we've always said, He-Man, and every time you play a video game, you get to be a male character. So it kind of made me open my eyes to the fact that, that's kind of nice for them to have a character to follow, as the females, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was a good thing. And then as the story went on, they brought He-Man back into it, and I really enjoyed it, and so did my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to mention that
I wasn't judgy or nothing. I just watched it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go
No,
ahead.
all done.
Okay. I have a DVD set this thick of all the old He-Man episodes that I can watch any freaking time that I want to. I've seen that guy defeat Skeletor 287 times. I've heard the wah, wah, when they go into the mud pit and all that stuff. It's fine. Those still exist despite this existing. So I think if you were to think of it as an extension of it, or if you would look at it as its own little contained thing that has its roots and references to the Filmation cartoon, either way, I think it's a valid piece of storytelling. I admire that it tried to move forward, and I don't criticize the focus of it. I think it was cool because it directly references the Filmation cartoon as something that they never really answered in the cartoon. They said they set it up, never really went back to Tila being the daughter of the sorceress. It's just this kind of a sort of arc. So I loved that angle. And the entirety of the overarching story that they were telling, I was okay with it. There was just some under the surface choices that I was like, that's a little weird. Again, so I wouldn't change the overarching story. I think it was smart. I think it was a smart way to do this, because how do you focus on Tila and her story arc with this setup from the series if you don't take He-Man out of the picture? Otherwise, he's just the Robin to Tila's Batman, and I think classic fans would have been that much more upset had that been the case. So taking him out and putting him on the shelf for a while, pun intended, uh, made more sense. But again, the devil's in the details. But it's a whole thing, and there's more good than bad if you look at it objectively, and remember that the Filmation cartoon didn't get destroyed because this exists. Personally,
My personal take on this, and again, this is just me speaking for myself, is the first mistake they made, if at all, is that they literally, and not just figuratively, they actually literally did state in the beginning of all the press releases and everything like that this was a direct continuation from the Filmation universe. So
True.
one of the problems with making that statement is that all of us as adults, we remember fondly what the Filmation cartoon was like, and we remember it as being this campy little kids show that no one ever got hurt, right? Skeletor would threaten people, but he never actually killed anybody. You know what I mean? He would make things. He would make a mess of things, and but you know what? It's funny because the beginning of the series was actually more violent than the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you actually watch the first season of He-Man, man, they're literally going for the jugular in a lot of ways. The creeping Horak, that thing literally was going after the royal family like it had stolen its children or something like that. It was literally frightening in many regards. And you know what? I argue that Skeletor was frightening in the first 2 seasons, but then as the series continues, it gets campier and campier, and again, it's like they start introducing more toys and everything like that. As Jim said, and you know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that this is literally like the parallels of the Transformers movie to this series. The polarizing nature of that whole concept, like I remember kids leaving the theaters because they were so upset. And you know what? As adults, it literally did in some ways, and a lot of people have said this, it ruined my childhood. You can't ruin your childhood. You're an adult. So the thing is that it's ruining your perception of He-Man as an icon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's ruining your perception of Skeletor as a villain, right? We're stepping over that threshold where our youth and our innocence, is now transcending into adulthood. And Kevin Smith took this bold move, as Jim said, to try something different, right? And the problem with the way Kevin did this is he did not tackle that directly at PowerCon. He sort of said, "Yeah, this is going to be the greatest, brand new, Revelations. It's going to be a continuation of everything like that, blah 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 blah." But he did not even mention at any stage that Teela was actually going to be the protagonist, the main protagonist. He allowed the slide to go through, and eagle-eyed fans like snap, and then that literally started the shit show. Pardon me, but literally, and everybody who is a shock jock out there on YouTube and on the internet, they took that and ran with it. And every single time there was a misstep, perhaps in marketing or whatever, they jumped on it. And that's actually the disservice that was done to MOTU fans. There's a story there. There's a good story there. There's a good narrative there. But everyone online span this idea that no, he's going to ruin it. This is going to be the worst thing ever. This is going to be terrible. This is just Mattel trying to get toys out there. And that because of that attitude,
at least in part, that could have been avoided if he wasn't so damn cagey and secretive. All they would have had to do is put it on Front Street and say, "Hey, you remember that storyline where they discover that Teela is the sorceress's daughter? We're going to take that and run with it in this series and explore that to its
and instead they copped out and said, "Oh, well, we called it Masters of the Universe and we didn't call it He-Man." I'm like, well, okay.
And what's the point of keeping that secret when it was accessible for 30 plus years as a storyline? This isn't some secret, revelation. We knew that. So if you just said, "Here's what it's about," I'd have been that much more excited and be like, "Oh, that's freaking great." And focused on that as a strength rather than trying to hide it away. Like they were scared of their own concept, and I think that was a huge misstep. Scared of their own concept.
kind of a different point, but when I'm creating stop motion, when I started making some of these, I was using He-Man and G.I. Joe. But if I got too creative and did my own storyline and changed the characteristics of that character or his profile or something, people would get upset if you strayed away from the story. So once I started doing my stop motions like exclusive G.I. Joe and more like the cartoon, then people started to like them more. So, as a creator, I couldn't really, I just had to kind of stay true to what was already existing. So I kind of started to think it's probably like I'm just an amateur, it's just for fun. But for some people, I can understand that, because as soon as you try to do your own thing with it, people don't want to start fresh and just watch it at face value. They have they have expectations, and that's what's going to let them down. But,
and I totally agree, Cobra. Again, I think it was a mistake. Not a mistake. I think that what Kevin Smith tried to do was brave. I think he really did try to do something which
original.
It's tough. As you said, it's tough because you know what? You're dealing with a 40-year-old brand, and you're dealing with people, and like we're all hard-boiled, crotchety old men. You know what I mean? That's really what we are. And you know what? We like things being exactly the way it is, right? Electric cars. I don't drive an electric car. I have no idea what that even means. You know what I mean? Like seriously, I need to put gas in my tank. Like that's a term which we all grew up in, right? The idea of plugging something into the wall to actually get you, to the next city. I'm scared of that. I'm seriously scared of running out of juice before we actually reach the end. But when it comes down to it, I think what 200X did made sense, right? They rebooted the series. Okay, they rebooted the series, allowing them the levity and the space to go in directions using characters that already existed, right? And but also respecting the brand.
You still recognize the characters, yeah.
Yeah. Now we can get it. Like I don't want to get into Lord of the Rings right now, but let that's another tale for another podcast. We can go on for that for days. But I will say that what they did with 200X was respectful. I think that 200X was, and again, it's not even called 200X. That's just a fan term that we've all adopted, right? It literally is just the Masters of the Universe reboot. Like that's really what it is. But everyone says 200X because it was done in the year 2000, right? So right. It's
the Mike Young Productions, right? That's really what it's called.
Exactly, the Mike Young Productions. But nobody's going to call it that, right? It's just easier to say 200X, 2000X, whatever you want to say. Cool. Kevin Smith would have been easy. It would have been very simple for Kevin to say, yeah, this is a brand new reboot. We're doing something completely different. But then those story points, those beats that he wanted to tell, they wouldn't be possible for him, right? As early as the first time it was launched, and the first time I saw that I heard about the thing, and people started like jumping on down Kevin's throat saying, "We saw that slide. We know what you're up to." And you know what I kept saying, no. This is a destiny which Tila has always had. We've known this since time immemorial. We've known this since season 2. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, seriously, Tila's destiny was always to become the sorceress, and this is her journey. This is her journey to fulfill that. And if you, and as Jim said, if you put He-Man right smack dab in the middle of that, what are you going to do? You're going to make, are you going to like, and ironically, it actually came to fruition. What are you going to do? Are you going to make him because this is actually what He-Man's purpose is, everybody. This is something that people don't want to acknowledge. Give me 1 second, guys, really quick.
No, it's all good.
Give me 1 second. I'll come down and look.
I don't disagree with Jay. I just, that just leaves room for another He-Man cartoon that's more identical to the original.
No, well, that's the thing, and maybe we ease into it that way.
Yeah, just as a final point, and then I gotta open my door for my brother. Because and as I said, it actually happened at the end. This would upset fans even more. If you really wanted He-Man to stay in the whole series, what would he be? He would be what he was always meant to be, the protector of the power of Grayskull, right? The one who protects the power. He has the power to protect the power. The real power of Grayskull is Grayskull. and the one who wields that power is going to be the
The
sorceress.
sorceress, right?
The sorceress is the. I'm going to leave you with that. You guys talk about that. I'll be right back.
All right, no problem. Well,
Best,
you know what?
best possible point for him to bring up. Absolutely. In as much as, again, whoever the sorceress is, He-Man is kind of the enforcer for the protection of Grayskull. Period. Always been the case. This is not a revelation. And it just kind of, people forget that. And whether you believe or mini comic guy or the DC run or the cartoon, the lore's different, and certainly 200X did that as well. And I think that whatever lore you're into, it's fine to be into it. But if you're a Filmation person, to deny the fact that this is what He-Man always was, and then get upset when he's still that in this new version where there's just a new sorceress, and rather than just putting her in that slot, you gotta, how'd she get there? Here's how it happened. What's the big deal? I don't understand. I think it was great, even if there were tiny details along the way that I was like, oh, really? But overall, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been amazing to come together like this and chat on a Saturday in the middle of San Diego Comic-Con. We are kind of coming towards and a little bit past the usual hour and a half that I like to do this, but the discussion was so good, I just kept it running, and always love hearing from you guys. Well, as we roll into the end of Comic-Con, the collecting more Origin stuff or Masterverse or whatever, have you guys got any final thoughts that you guys want to leave us with? Corey, we'll start with you.
Oh, I just had a great time. It was nice hearing from Jay and Jim. I'm definitely going to check out both you guys' channel now.
Yeah, definitely do. They got some great thoughts on there.
Yeah,
Jim.
So I mean, I've been into the artistic side of everything, and just collecting and stuff. So I'm still learning stuff too, and educating myself about all this stuff that I love. So these kind of things that are good for me as much as anybody else.
And admittedly for me, I'm not the biggest MOTU guy. I mean, you see my channel is mostly about some of the other toy lines, but I figure you guys are all very much into MOTU. And I thought, I thought what better to have this conversation. And just by coincidence, we end up getting all these really great reveals this week. And it just helped the conversation further and flourish a little bit more. Jim.
I'm very grateful for this panel and the opportunity. Thanks to everyone here, Jay, Corbra, Corey, and of course you, Ken. This was one of the best conversations I've had on live stream in a long time. When it comes to MOTU, I think the future is bright. We're going to have gripes along the way because we're adults and we're customers and we're like, hey, this is my money. I want to spend it the way I want it. That's natural. We're going to disagree. We're going to agree. That's the nature of discourse and the art of debate, folks. Never lose sight of that. Humble push. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, you can catch me live on my channel. Hope to see you there, and more to come. But this has been a blast.
Awesome. Jay, take us home.
Not to derail everybody, but if anybody has the link to Mindbender, he's up again. So I'm gonna leave that. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. That way people can do whatever they need to do with that. In terms of Masters, it's never been, and Jim put it together very nicely. It has never been a better time to be a Master Universe fan. For a while, Super 7 was carrying that torch when Mattel just did not give a fuck. Seriously, they did not give two rat's asses up. And then you know what? Unceremoniously, there you go. Unceremoniously, they rip it out of their hands. I remember when Brian came on his and said, yeah, this is going to be the last set that we create. And fittingly enough, it was the Master Universe Stout collection for the most part. Right, I think there were a few more figures after that, but for the most part, that was where it was. And fittingly, poetically, it was kind of like the end of an era for Super 7. And then we found out what Mattel was going to do with it. And you know what? There was just so many questions, right? Finding out about Masterverse, finding out about Revelations, finding about a new television series. Literally 30 years later, the imagination just ran away with it. And then, of course, people had reservations. People were confused. People were concerned, and that's fine. We can all be that, right? We can all do that. But we also got to remember that if we stick to the same old stories, if we stick to the same old things over and over and over and over again, you wouldn't like it either, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would be disappointed just as much as you were when you saw the original, right? If you go back and watch He-Man, except for a few key episodes, you can't even get through half of the episodes that are out there. They're so campy, so childish. I mean, literally, the way they speak is absolutely ridiculous. I've tried my best. Thundercats is the same thing. I love those properties to death. Okay, so the commitment that they've made for 2023, 2024, I sincerely hope with all my heart that that's actually a true commitment and that they won't pull the rug under from us. But what's been announced, what's been tooled up, what's already being conceived, play sets which are gigantic, figures which have never seen the light of day in North America, right? These ideas, these concepts are wonderful. How they're being distributed, we can have an entirely new concept on. Absolutely, we can have an entirely new concept on that. What is the future of Mattel Creations? Apparently, someone says in some news bite that they are pushing more towards Mattel Creations distribution. That would be unfortunate. But is it the nature of the, is it the nature of the business? Perhaps it is. We like online seems to have been taking over our consciousness for so long. Like it's inevitable at this point. But for us as fans, I truly think that this is a time to celebrate. And you know what? Happy birthday, He-Man! Happy birthday. We're only a few days away, so happy birthday, He-Man.
And I did put the link to Dr. Mindbender in the chat there. Hopefully people got it. I think I put the link, thought it was wrong, deleted it, and put it back again because hopefully it works for you folks to be able to get that. Some people asked about the CGI show. I've only watched a little bit of it. I think it's okay. I'm glad it exists.
It's not for me, but the parents that I know who have children that are the right age, the kids by and large are really enjoying it, and
perfect. Which is what we want.
That's a good thing. So if that's the case, great. It's not for me. It was never meant for me, and I'm fine with that.
The first season is actually is fun. It's fun in so much that it's new. It really is new. The direction they're taking in it, it's very DreamWorks like, but it's not DreamWorks. And what I really enjoy about it, honestly, is that writing today for kids is completely different from writing back in the 80s. Honestly, we actually are giving kids a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that they can actually figure things out on their own. I appreciate that a lot. And I love the CGI. That above all else, I love the CGI. It really is quite nice. And you know what I actually hate, to be perfectly honest with you? They really did cheap out with the figures. They're a little bit too. They're not actually where I want them to be. Like with all the new tooling that we have with and the new sculpting that they're able to do, I'm actually quite shocked that the female figures are actually not the way they're supposed to. They look terrible. The female figures in the toy line look absolutely horrid. He-Man actually doesn't look that bad. He-Man and Skeletor actually don't look that bad. They have very little paint, but for the most part, they fall very, very short of the mark. I've literally picked up only Prince Adam, which I really wanted. I really wanted Prince Adam. I haven't picked up any He-Man because I'm not really attracted to them. I picked up Skeletor and I picked up Man-at-Arms. That's where I am at this point. But I'm so tempted by that Castle Grayskull.
I was just about to say it's a really compelling looking playset. If they nail the price point, it does scale with Origins, and you could do some interesting customs with it if you really wanted to go down that road.
What's the price point, Jim? I didn't even know they actually released the price.
They didn't say. They didn't say. So if it's a similar price point to the Origins Grayskull, I think that'd be a hit.
100%. If it's
better, if they do the same, there's no news on it, to my knowledge. But with it having all the I think that for its relative size, without the electronics, it's probably a $60 piece. But 80 to 100 is probably more likely because of all those features, and I hope that's the case because I think the kids will have a lot of fun with it.
I'm hoping, but with all the electronics, as long as it goes to retail, I think you're right. It'll probably be the 80, 90, possibly even $100 price point. I'm fine with that, because even in Canadian, that's about 120, 130. I'm okay with that. That's actually not a bad price for everything that comes.
They did confirm it is retail at the panel yesterday.
Yes.
That's 100%.
Good to know.
Yes.
Good to know. That's great news to end this and take this home. But gents, this has been a wonderful time. I couldn't think of a better group of guys for a fitting topic at a fitting time to potentially do this. All the links are in the description below for these guys' channels, so please throw them a subscription. And otherwise, we'll all see you again soon. And with that, we'll wave goodbye.
Yeah.
Good journey,
Cheers,
everybody.
guys.
Take care.